Morning, Trainiacs. I have spent the last day getting a lot of messages from athletes on teamtrainiac.com who are racing, who are dealing with facility closures, who are traveling, who are having to alter their training, all because of the coronavirus. For the last 24 hours, I've been sorting through all of the common issues that a lot of Ironman and triathlon athletes are dealing with. And this video is going to be all about what we know out there as it relates to triathletes and how you can deal with this in your training, in your travel, and actually maybe come out of this hopefully better than you are right now. Shockingly, yeah, I was surprised. So all right, Trainiacs, we have a lot of notes to get through here, so I'm just gonna get into it. The first thing that you need to do as it relates to the coronavirus is educate yourself. There is a lot of information and a lot of misinformation out there. There are two different sources of information that I recommend that you would go check out. I'm gonna put links to everything that we talk about in the description below. The first resource is the Joe Rogan podcast, where he had somebody for the Center for Infectious Disease Control come on and talk about what the actual facts are. Second is Peter Attia's Instagram, where he's doing daily updates about the situation, what we know about how to treat it, how to avoid it, the rate of growth, and these two sources I find are very, very reliable. So go check them out. Links are in the description below. As it relates to triathletes, the biggest thing that we have to deal with is social isolation. What we know is that this is an airborne virus. Things like Purell, not shaking hands, not touching your face, those are great for avoiding common viruses, other colds, other infections. But as it relates to the coronavirus, they probably won't be methods that are actually going to keep you from contracting it because it's airborne. Breathing the same air as other people is what transmits this. Doing all those other things to potentially avoid the other infections is largely just keeping your immune system high, making you a little bit more potentially resilient to the coronavirus. So keep doing those things if they make you feel good about them, but they aren't directly related to contracting or not contracting the coronavirus. The only thing that we know that can for sure slow the rate of growth in an area of the coronavirus spreading and the likelihood of you contracting it is social isolation. Staying away from people. Why we know that is there are a couple of ways that a virus can spread. One is that there are more people contracting the virus, and the rate at which people are contracting it is increasing. The other is there are more people contracting the virus, but the rate at which they are contracting it is decreasing. When China implemented their social isolation policies, that's what started slowing the rate of growth. The US has just recently implemented some of these more social isolation policies, and we've seen things like the NBA canceling the rest of their season, putting it on hold. And these are still new measures, so the rate of growth in the United States is still increasing. And it's up to us to basically change our lives to do our part right now to help stop the spread of this virus. That means staying away from people so that in the United States we can get a handle on it. The question of, will this affect you and triathletes in particular? Well, it's less likely for triathletes to suffer severely through this virus. Some of the main risk factors associated with this virus are high blood pressure, diabetes, particularly obesity, things that triathletes don't have high incidence rate of. So we are healthier, we are less likely to contract the disease, we are less likely to, if we do contract the disease, suffer from it immensely. So we are in a safer cohort. With that said, there are 3 rules of thumb. Number 1, if you live in an area that has an outbreak, it's probably best that you stay away from people. Number 2, if you're feeling sick, obviously, it's best to stay away from people. Number 3, if you are in one of those cohorts that has high blood pressure, diabetes, you are overweight, you have an underlying health condition, it's probably best that you stay away from people. Now, with that said, I think that there are three main areas that this affects triathletes: in our training, in our racing, and actually what gear we buy. The logistics of the triathlon industry is about to be shaken up, and you can actually benefit from that. As far as training goes, the swim is the thing that you are probably going to have to address the most. It's the most affected by this, with things like pool closures, and it's the sport that is a lot harder to avoid people in. So you're gonna have to change how you swim. But it's also the sport that you can probably get away with not being in, and if you structure your training properly, you can probably come out of this a better athlete, maybe being a little bit slower in the swim, but gaining time on the bike and the run. And here's how I'd recommend doing that. First off, don't swim at peak hours. If you are in an area that there haven't been any outbreaks and you're feeling okay, by all means, still go to the pool, but I would recommend doing it midday. Times like 9 or 1:30 in the afternoon tends to be a ghost town in a lot of pools. But if you are in an area that has had pool closures, what you're gonna have to do is obviously not swim. A lot of our athletes on teamtrainiac.com have asked, should I start doing dry land swimming to maintain my swim? Feel for the water is only maintained and built by time in the water. Dry land, while yes, it can potentially help your swimming, it's not really well associated with swimming. There's almost no substitute for swimming besides swimming. What I would recommend you do is add in additional bike, strength, run workouts in that order. Bike workouts are so low impact that you can add additional bike workouts in as long as you keep them low intensity without any risk of injury. So when you add in those bike workouts, keep them low intensity, and that low intensity is going to help you absorb the higher intensity later in the season, allowing you to progress faster later on when you come back from it. Strength workouts, I recommend that you increase the amount of strength workouts that you do, which is one of the biggest things that improves our efficiency on the bike and the run, and it's the thing that most triathletes tend to ignore. Run workouts, you have to be very careful when you add additional run workouts in because it's the crackerjack box of injuries. So what I recommend is if you do get to the point that you've maxed out increasing bike and strength workouts, and then you want to move on to increasing the amount of running that you do, keep the volume very low and add frequency. So things like 10, 15, 20-minute runs done frequently throughout the week is a lot better than saying, hey, I've got extra time, I'm gonna go for another 1 hour run when you haven't done that before. With regards to biking and running, it's probably best to avoid your group bikes, your group workouts on the run. Do them solo or do them in a pain cave. Strength workouts, if you are somebody that has to go to a gym, that means that you are probably not going to the gym and you are avoiding those heavy weights. Frankly, that's a good thing. At this time of the year, with the race preparation getting underway, you probably want to start backing off of all those heavy weights. On teamtrainiac.com, right now, most of the workouts that our athletes are doing can all be done at home with just body weight work or plyometrics. This is a good time to just stay out of the gym, focus on the lighter movements, the body weight movements, the fast movements with some plyometrics, and that's going to be a really good return on your time. Now let's talk about racing. Ironman has already announced that they have postponed Greece until October. They have postponed Puerto Rico indefinitely, and Superfrog has been canceled with no real indication of when it is going to come back. Ironman has a live update page that will be in the description below where they're updating it frequently throughout the day, and they are making choices on race by race basis. Also have released a press statement that indicates that if a race is postponed, you will instantly be entered into that race for the new date. If a race is canceled, you will instantly have a credit to go into that race next year. Now, for athletes that have real no way to accommodate either of those options, they say that they are talking about other options. They haven't mentioned the word refund at all. That tends not to be Ironman's MO, so I don't expect refunds to happen. Keep training as you always are, and then make a decision about 4 or 5 days before the race if you're actually going to travel. If you are in an area that has an outbreak, if you're traveling to an area that has an outbreak, if you aren't feeling well whatsoever, stay home. The good thing about this is that a lot of airlines have announced that they are doing away with cancellation fees that they would typically have. So those cancellation fees for your airline tickets are going to not cost as much, and hopefully you can move the cost of that flight or whatever travel you've got to another time. As far as not going to an Ironman race, you're probably not going to get a refund from them if the race goes on. But here's the thing to remember. There will be other races. There's only one human race. Corny, I know, but I thought about it and it's true. The third and final piece to this is buying gear. You might not think it, but Dianor, the founder of Ventum, talked a lot about this in the podcast that we did with him while we were at Ventum headquarters. What Dia said is that the coronavirus is going to have a massive effect on the logistics of not just the bike industry, but the entire triathlon industry, because a lot of production is being shut down in China, where the vast amount of our products are made. But this is something that you can potentially capitalize on. Take Ventum, for example. They had 2 bikes that they were going to release this summer. Those bikes are delayed slightly. They're still going to come out, but my belief, they didn't tell me this is my interpretation of what's going on, is they've recently re-released the Ventum Z, a bike that they had lots of stock on, and it sells well already, and they've re-released it with a new spec and a lower price point. My take on this is if it's already selling well, why lower the price point and make less on it? I believe that to make the bottom line profits and the top line revenue that all the companies in triathlon need to make to stay in business, they're going to have to create incentives to boost some of the sales that they are going to lose out on by that logistics supply chain being broken. So I think what you're going to see, and you are seeing right now, is offers like the Ventum Z that you can go cash in on for several $100s less than you could a couple of months ago. Keep an eye out for things like that, where you see just special promotions here and there that aren't typically seen at times other than like Black Friday, Christmas, the odd promo here and there. I think you're gonna probably see a lot more that just happen because companies can't say, hey, coronavirus sale. They can say re-release. They can say special promotion. They can say special limited time offer. Keep an eye out for these things. Finally, as a former investment advisor, and now that I can actually say this stuff publicly on camera, which I oddly, when I was a registered investment advisor, they wouldn't actually let me say these things. Do not worry. The fact that the rate of growth is already slowing down in China gives us indication that this could be a very temporary thing. Stock prices have been completely hammered. They've gone down by 20 to 40%, and that would mean, if those prices of stocks were accurate, that for the next 20 years, companies are going to make 20 to 40% less money. With a 1-year blip, maybe it means that companies make 2, 3, 4, 5%, even 1% less profit over the next 20 years, but it's temporary. So personally, NTK and I are scrounging up every last dollar that we can, and everything that we're planning on putting into investments, RRSPs in Canada, 401k in the United States, that we were planning on putting into that over the next 2 years. We're ramping up into buying some stocks now and looking at companies that even back in 2008 maintained their dividend, because that's an indication that they are sound companies that can weather temporary storms. And if instead of getting a 3.5% dividend, you're all of a sudden getting a 7.5% dividend, and you've bought the company when it's essentially on sale, you can wait for the 5 years for it to come back, and you're making a hell of a dividend on top of it. So that's it, Trainiacs. A very different video here today. Stay safe, stay by yourself, stay fit, stay healthy, keep the frequency up. And if you look at this from the standpoint of, all right, it's a challenge that I have to deal with, hopefully some of these guidelines will help you get through it and maybe come out of it a better athlete with more gear, with more attractive investments in the end of it. I hope that this has helped. Links will be to everything that I talked about in the description below. And if you aren't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button. Morning, Trainiacs.